We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. We're going to do a little experiment today. It's the weekend, so things end up being a little different. We're going to do a live. We're not going to do it on TikTok. We're going to do it on YouTube. Now, I've prepped nobody for this. Moderators are doing other things. So I'm going to do this, as they say, bareback, and we'll see what happens. We know that the Trumplafucks are out in full force as of late. Um, and we'll see what happens here on YouTube. Now, YouTube typically gets fewer people coming through because I've got more followers on TikTok, but it's kind of nice actually. It's a little easier to keep up with everybody in the room. So we're on live now. I've nobody in the YouTube live room at this point. Presumably somebody will show up, but we'll see what happens. Yesterday we talked to Will. That was an interesting conversation. Will tends to have a little more negative outlook of what's happening. I'm a glass half full kind of guy. I realize it's going to be rough. I realize things are going to be difficult, but I like to keep a positive vibe on this whole thing. Now, I'm going to be interested to see what happens. We have one person on the live, and I'm going to ask that one person a favor. And when I did a live on YouTube last time, I was getting questions and comments and all that sort of thing, but then it just stopped and I wasn't getting any kind of comments at all. And I'm not sure why that is. So now we have two people out there. I'm just going to ask you to just make any comment, say hi, say whatever, just to see if those comments are coming through. To make sure it's working all right. Because if no one can ask questions, there's really no point in continuing doing the live. I'm not sure why that would be the problem. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens here. As I'm recording this, I'm simultaneously doing the Rational Boomer podcast. And for those 6 people out there, I want to remind you to check out the Rational Boomer podcast. Sun Placing says, "What's this channel about?" Well, this is the Rational Boomer, and we talk a lot about politics and what's happening in the news today. It is not positive for Donald Trump. So if you're a Trump fan, you're not going to like this. But just hang around and we'll talk about it. Robin Banks says, "Could be the new AI YouTube brain they put in." Yeah, it could be. You're absolutely right. But at least these questions came up. So that is a positive thing. At least we're getting some people coming through. I wanted to bring something up that was Donald Trump and how Donald Trump has pretty much played the Trumplafucks. They aren't the smartest group in the world, and they got played. Donald Trump campaigned on bringing prices down, groceries particularly, eggs and gas and all those sorts of things. Well, Donald Trump said today that it's going to be very hard to bring down grocery prices. That's funny because he said it was going to be easy. Way out. What's your background and qualifications? What's your fucking qualifications? Why don't you like Trump? Well, that right there tells me something that I'm going to get rid of you, because this isn't about arguing with Trumplafucks. I had a Trumplafuck on my podcast recently, and it didn't go well for them. Pretty much destroyed them, and so we're not going to debate Trumplafucks. You'll get angry, you'll get mad, you go whine into YouTube. I don't have time for you fucks. You won the election. Show us what you got and accomplish something. But already Donald Trump is saying, well, they can't guarantee tariffs will not make prices go higher. And I can't guarantee that I can bring down grocery prices. Well, those were the main things that Trumplafucks tell me the reason they voted for him. Now, how do you feel about that? Don't you feel like you got played? Yeah, it's starting to look like we've got a lot of Trumplafucks out there. And I'm really not in the mood to talk to Trumplafucks. Benny Loco says, "Howdy, Boomer. Slip me a wrench and I'll sweep the trolls for you." Well, let's see if I can do that. Okay. Okay, Benny, you're now a moderator, so start sweeping them. I appreciate it. Jimmy says I can't read. Well, if you can't read, you're of no value to me. Benny Loco is somebody who listens to the podcast with some regularity and comments all the time. And I believe she has a podcast too. So look into that. Very smart woman. And we have a like mind. So it's always nice to hear from Benny Loco. Um, Benny, tell me the name of your podcast so I can tell folks what it is. Katrina Jones says, greetings from Englewood. Greetings, Katrina. Thank you for joining us. It's nice to see a friendly name out there. We started out, and a lot of Trumplafucks popped down. And, I don't suggest that I'm the smartest guy in the world, but these Trumplafucks are certainly the dumbest people in the world. And there's no point in doing a show when you've got dumb motherfuckers out there. Okay, Benny Loco's podcast is 21st Century Suffragettes Channel. Check it out. I guarantee you'll like it. A lot of goofballs out there. Can you say happy birthday today for my birthday? Happy birthday. You know, whether you're a Trumplafuck or you're just not serious, you don't interest me. So anyway, Donald Trump is now walking back his promises. And the thing about it is, he seemed very certain of it. He thought for sure that he could drop the grocery prices. At least that's what he told Trumplafucks. He also said tariffs would help the economy. And now he's saying, I'm not sure that it won't raise prices. Every time I talk to a Trumplafuck, that's what they based everything on. We need lower prices. Eggs are too high. Now, Donald Trump says he's not sure he can do it. So what the fuck is he going to do for you? Um, Gary says, best wishes for an auspicious year. Yeah, we're coming to the end of 2024. 2025 is coming up with Donald Trump, the presumptive president elect, and going to be inaugurated on January 20th. Honestly, it doesn't offer much hope to a lot of people. I'm a glass half full kind of guy. So I'm worried in the sense that it's going to be bad for some people. I happen to think that the Trumplafucks are going to be um, worse off than regular folks. And I'm going to laugh my ass off when they're struggling. It's going to be a great year. Good things are coming our way. Trust. Yeah, Benny, that's pretty much what I like to say too. We can't worry about what's already gone by us. We got to focus on the future. I mean, be honest with you, the Republicans think they had a landslide. I talked to a Trumplafuck and he says it was a landslide. No, it wasn't. Donald Trump won the popular vote by 1.4%. That's the third lowest in the history of the presidency. Then they say, well, what about the electoral vote? Well, Donald Trump got 312 electoral votes, and that's substantial. But you forget Joe Biden got 306 electoral votes. So if Donald Trump had a landslide, then Joe Biden should be considered to have had a landslide over Donald Trump. But somehow you don't see it that way, do you? Trumplafucks aren't serious people. They don't have real thoughts. They just repeat or parrot what the Trumplafucks on the higher levels say. Let's see here. You know, it's going to be fun, Benny, is that as we go along and things get bad in terms of the economy and prices go up, I bet you're going to hear the Trumplafucks quiet down quite a bit. Their egos pretty much get away from them. And when they do, they tend to clam up. It's like racists who spent many years many years hiding under rocks until Donald Trump said it was okay for you to be racist, and that's what we've done here. Um, So we got 28 people on here. Now, I will just say this. I normally do lives on TikToks because as it gets busier, we have more trouble with Trumplafucks. I have moderators. And even still, it's troublesome. And here's the question I have for Trumplafucks. Leading up to the election, you love to argue with us. You love to fight with us. Well, you won. What do you want to fight about now? Are you angry because we're not spitting and crying and whining about this? I think you are. See, the thing is, you can't govern. You don't know what the fuck you're doing. All you can do is argue. Now, if you want to argue on a social media platform like TikTok or YouTube, we're not going to do that because it's an unfair situation. You people, without doubt, will get your ass kicked. I promise you that. And then you go crying to YouTube or TikTok and talk about how mean I was. If you seriously want to debate, if you seriously think you're smart, um, send me an email at rationalboomer@gmail.com and I'll put you on the podcast. I'll give you a whole hour to say whatever the fuck you want. But understand, I'm going to say some things too, and I'm going to ask some questions. I'm going to expect answers, something you're not really good at. And if you want to hear how it goes, well, just listen to one I did called Opposition Extra. Take a listen to that and see if you still want to come in. Analytical Iowan is here. Hey, Eric, how you doing? Um, Wonderful Horseshoe says, good morning from Newcastle, UK. Don't take any notice. Well, UK, thank you very much for checking in. That's the wonderful thing about doing these things on TikTok and YouTube and the podcast for that matter. We're able to get people from all over the world. And it's amazing to me how many people are interested in what's going on here. And the problem is what happens here does trickle down to some other countries, and it worries other people. So I appreciate that. Fred Herbert says, "Are you a veteran?" No, I'm not. I'm 64 years old, so I was too young for Vietnam. I did not join the armed services. My grandfather was in World War II, but I was not in the armed services. But I have a lot of respect of the people who did sacrifice and risk themselves to be in the service. Anyhow, we're doing this live on a Thursday night on YouTube, and I made no plan to do this. I didn't promote it. I just thought, what the fuck? We'll come out here and see what the hell happened. Now, prior to doing this live, I did a recording with Will. If you've ever listened to the podcast, you know who Will is. Will's a Latino man who lives in Georgia. He's got a lot of spunk. He's very passionate, and he always comes in hot. And that's what's going to be on the podcast prior to this one. This will probably air on Saturday, and what you're going to hear from Will happen Friday night or Friday morning throughout the day. It's confusing to me too. Tony Brooks, I've been watching your videos for a long time. I have a lot of respect for you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm not trying to do this for fame or money. I'm doing it to try to hopefully make some noise in this country. I mean, that's essentially what happened. That's how the Democrats got beat. The Democrats got beat because the Republicans were able to scream louder, blame Joe Biden for everything, talk about the high prices, talk about the border. And even though everything they said was a lie, it still worked. They still won the election. So my premise is going forward, since Donald Trump has the presidency and the House and the Senate, we're just going to point out every fucking failure, every fucking ridiculous thing. We're going to be loud about it. You think you're going to hold on to the narrative? Not as far as I'm concerned, because I can talk louder and longer than virtually anybody. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make fun of you motherfuckers. I'm going to point out every failure. Like, for example, Donald Trump saying he isn't sure he can bring down grocery prices, saying that tariffs, he can't promise that they won't raise prices. Well, that's contrary to what he said coming into the election. So for all intents and purposes, Donald Trump lied to you. Now, here's the thing. We Democrats, we liberals knew he was lying. but you were too short sighted, too simple minded to understand what the fuck he was doing. You got played. All right. I heard Kamala may run for governor of California. She's been quiet lately about her future plans. That's absolutely right. I've heard that same thing. And that would be dependent on maybe Gavin Newsom running for president in 2028. And he seems like the likely candidate now because he has a lot of qualities that apparently we need to win an election. It would be great if Kamala Harris ran for president again in 2028, but this country has proved that it's largely racist and probably a little sexist too. So somehow, some way, we've got to come up with a white man in order to get all the Democratic votes, which troubles me. I'm angry with the Republicans by their behavior, but I'm a little disappointed in the Democrats because the Democrats, had they done what they should have done, Kamala Harris would have won. But apparently, we have some Democrats that are upset about Gaza, which is weird because now it's going to get worse in Gaza because of how they voted. They don't like the idea of a woman being president or a person of color again being president. And this is why we find ourselves where we are. John says, now, once you lose a presidential race, you're basically done in terms of politics. Well, that's not true. Joe Biden lost a primary. He ran a couple of times and he lost. So that's not totally true. I mean, I get what you're saying. I don't think it has anything to do with her having lost the race. Unfortunately, in this country, it apparently does have some bearing on whether you can win or not, whether you're a woman or you're a woman of color. Sad to say, but racism is as rampant in this country as it was in the 1960s. It seemed like it got better for a while, but that was only because they were hiding under the rocks until Donald Trump came out and said, it's cool to be racist. Cole says, I'm going to donate $10 for what? Well, who would you donate $10 to? Don't donate money to me. I don't do this for money. I'm not asking for any gifts in those regards. So I appreciate that the idea, but it's not necessary. I don't want to give the impression I'm doing this for money. You know, TikTok will pay me some, YouTube will pay me some, and that's fine. They're making money off me. If I can get a taste of that, that's cool. But I don't like having the audience pay money to me. That's not necessary. You'll get the same thing. No Patreon here, none of that bullshit. I'm going to talk, and if I can get your attention and get you to listen, that's payment enough. Dolphin Pod, someone who looks like you but somehow talks like you do is very healing for a lot of people. I get that. I get that because a lot of people who don't know me or haven't heard uh, what I have to say, it's easy to look at a face like this, a guy of 64 years old, just sitting in his living room thinking, well, there's a Trump humper, there's a racist, there's a sexist. And I guess that was my kind of my niche when I got into social media. I was kind of a what's the word I'm looking for? I created a conundrum. I look like a Trumper, but I don't talk like it. And you're absolutely right. When I walk down the street, I will get Trumplafucks walk up to me thinking I'm part of the group and say shit to me. And they are very surprised of my response. Uh, the only media I watch, Tracy Maloney. Thank you very much. And, thankfully, there's a lot of people that are thinking like you do. They're getting away from mainstream media because they aren't giving us the news. They're just manipulating and doing whatever they have to do to make money. And they're losing badly right now. They're losing audience, they're losing money, and they don't know what to do. Well, they should learn a lesson from what happened over the last 4 years. You bought into Donald Trump. You gave him credibility because he was a shit show and because he made you money. You had total disregard for the country and the people in this country. Now the people in this country are revolting against you, and they're rebelling because they're tired of the same old bullshit. Hopefully the media will learn a lesson, but I doubt it. Boomer is a real American. Thank you, Benny Loco. I appreciate that. Same could be said for you. I try to be as best I can. I'm not the perfect guy. I'm not the smartest guy, but I tell you what, when I have the Rational Boomer podcast on, I have the good fortune of having very smart people who make me look good. So be sure to check out the Rational Boomer podcast. How do you deal with a liar? Well, if you're talking about Republicans, really the only thing you can do is disregard them, make them inconsequential. Some people say, why don't you talk to Trump fucks? Maybe you can teach them something. No, you can't teach them anything. They don't listen to shit. They can't grasp truth or justice. They only know the lies and they just repeat them over and over again. The unfortunate thing you have to do with these people is just disregard them, sweep them away from your life. They're not worth having around. Analytical Iowan, and I would suggest you check him out on TikTok and here on YouTube. He does a lot of great work. I get a lot of information from Eric, so check him out. He says, wish I would have known you were live. I would have ended my live on TikTok and sent everyone over here. Eric, I tell you what, I just did this on a spur of the moment thing. I wasn't worried about how many people we would get here. I just said, fuck it, I'm going to do this. I appreciate that, but it's not necessary. Katrina Jones says, I love Boomer's channel. His guests are great. Thank you very much. They are great. They are great. You know, it's funny when I first started doing the podcast, I didn't really want to have a co-host because then the co-host has to be there when I'm there. You get ego shit. And then I thought we could have guests, but then I don't want people coming on trying to sell their podcast or sell books or something like that. So I thought, what the hell? I'll just have listeners on as guests. And a lot of people thought that was a dumb idea. But the fact of the matter is, I knew it would work because in my early days, when I was a producer in the early 80s in radio, I produced call-in talk shows. And those shows were largely just listeners calling in with their input. So what I do is basically a call-in talk show, but I only have one caller. So that's why it worked. What do you think of Jon Stewart for 2028? Some people talk about it. What is your thought? I think the last thing we need is another entertainer as president of the United States. I like Jon Stewart. I think he has more value on the outside stirring the shit. It's like people tell me you should run for something. No, I'd be a horrible presidential or senator or even a councilman candidate. I don't listen to shit. I don't like meetings, and I will say things that piss people off. Now I can do it in this mode, but if I'm part of the problem, I don't want to do that. I don't want to see Jon Stewart as part of the problem. Tony Brooks says, I still do not get why or how Trump won. Seriously, I have no clue. How can people vote for a person like Trump? Well, that's the interesting thing. On election night, I went to bed early. I knew they weren't going to come up with an answer until late in the morning. And I wanted to, or early in the morning, and I wanted to just go to bed and hope for the best. So I got up in the morning. And the way I got up is my wife came in and said, that motherfucker won, you promised me. And you're right. It made no logical sense that Donald Trump won. I was definitely confused by that. I had no idea how that was even possible. You take every data point, you take all the polls, you take everything into account. There's no way Donald Trump wins. He was the absolute worst presidential candidate in history. Kamala Harris had the most enthusiasm behind her over any other presidential candidate in history. Logic, common sense, it didn't make sense for her to lose. And then as I look at things, I look how it played out. Donald Trump didn't really gain any votes in this election since 2020, about 74 million. That's what he got in the 2020 election. The problem was the fucking Democrats. They didn't get out and vote, or they didn't want to vote for a woman. And Kamala ended up getting like 72 million votes. Now, keep in mind, in 2020, Joe Biden got 81 million votes. So we're looking at a difference between 9 million votes of Democrats who voted in 2020 who didn't vote in 2024. That's why I say, if you want to blame somebody for this election, sadly, it's the fucking Democrats. POTB says, I agree, but people talk about it. Well, people talk about a lot of dumb shit. Um, I'm not saying that Jon Stewart couldn't be a decent president. He's a compassionate guy, he's a smart guy. But we really need to have somebody who knows how to operate within the system. We saw this with Donald Trump. Donald Trump thought everything would go his way. He would do whatever he wanted, and everything would come to him like he had in his business. The problem is our governmental system is bigger than Donald Trump. You have to know how to use the system and play the system. And Joe Biden knows it very well. He's probably the smartest one in Washington, D.C. He was in the Senate for 50 years. He knows how the game is played, and that's why he was able to accomplish things. Donald Trump, as much as people are scared of him now, you have to remember back to his first term. He talked a lot of shit. He was going to do this, he was going to do that. But what did he really accomplish? You got the tax cut for the wealthy people and the crumbs for us that's now over. But he really didn't accomplish anything because him and the people around him are largely incompetent. They don't know how to work the system. In spite of the fact that he talks a big game, most of it never comes through, as I was stating before. He said he would bring down grocery prices. And just today he says, well, that's going to be hard to do. No shit, Donnie. No shit, Donnie. You seem very positive about it. And he said tariffs would not raise prices. And then when asked about that, he says, well, I can't guarantee it won't raise prices. See what Donnie Trump is doing? He's walking it back. And that's what narcissists do. They make outrageous claims and then they back off what they said. They're always disappointing people. That's the essence of Donald Trump. All his life, he's been nothing but a disappointment. He was a disappointment to his parents. He was disappointment in college. He was a disappointment in his business because he always failed. I challenge anybody to tell me one effort that Donald Trump made where he succeeded. Diane says, I hope Gavin Newsom runs for president in 2028. I like him. I like him too. I think he fits the mold to win the election. He's young, he's white, he's a male, he's got a quick wit, he's got a sharp tongue when necessary. He would be a good candidate, but understand 2028 is a long ways away. It's 4 years. A lot of things can happen in that time period. There could be somebody who emerges that's even better than Gavin Newsom. Now, maybe not, but don't settle on Gavin Newsom yet. Let's see how things play out. And it's important for me to see the Democrats do something. They keep stepping on their own toes. They need to find somebody who's a likely candidate, get behind them early, and get this fucker done. I mean, that's part of the problem. We had Kamala Harris. She had basically 3 months, 4 months to mount a presidential candidacy, and she did a hell of a job. She raised a ton of money. She did everything right. The problem with that election wasn't Kamala Harris. It was the Democrats who dropped the fucking ball. William says, narcissists, they don't listen and they don't change. Well, you're absolutely right about this. I have a little inside knowledge of narcissists. My father was a malignant narcissist, sociopath, and a pathological liar. It was difficult living with him. Fortunately, he worked a lot, and I was left with my mom, who was a wonderful woman. But I learned a lot of lessons by living with this person for some 22 or 23 years. I know what they look like, I know what they do, and I know how they end up. They all end up crashing. My father, for example, was a pretty successful businessman, made a pretty fair amount of money for where we lived in the era. From a distance, he looked like he had all the tools. He was charismatic. He was a good looking guy. But when people got close to him, they saw the cracks, and he never had any close friends. My father, much like Donald Trump will do, He ended his life with no contact with his family. And he was living in a one-bedroom apartment that was sparsely furnished. He ended up dying in a recliner by himself in his underwear. That's how it ends up for narcissists. That's how it's going to end up for Donald Trump. Dolores says, Boomer, I listen to all your podcasts. They're very informative. Thank you. Thank you, Dolores. I appreciate that. Benny Loco says, no more Follywood in the White House. Yeah, we got to get away from this celebrity bullshit. Just because you're a celebrity doesn't make you a likely candidate for elected office. You know, I've heard Matthew McConaughey and all those, and maybe they would do a fine job, but I want somebody who knows how to do the job. I mean, if I got a problem with my car, I'm not going to have a plumber fix it. I'm going to have a mechanic, somebody who understands what they're doing. And that's kind of the way it is by putting in celebrities. The problem with why celebrities get so much play is because it's the opposite of what people always say. They'll say, this is not a popularity contest when talking about a presidential election. Well, the fuck it's not. We know at least half this country don't know fuck all about fuck all, and they'll pick whoever they think is the coolest, the handsomest, the funniest, the strongest. And most of the time, they make the wrong choice. And clearly, when they picked Donald Trump, they fucked up big time. Mrs. N. Adams says, my vote is for Gavin Newsom in 2028. Well, you might have that opportunity. But again, that's 4 years away. A lot of things can change in that time period. and I just have one negative thing to say about Gavin Newsom, about his decision making, his choices. Smart guy. He's done a good job in California. I can say that living in Minnesota. I'm not in the mix there. So maybe there's something different coming from Californians who live under his governorship. I mean, I'm in Minnesota. I got Tim Walz as my governor. I'm cool with him. He could be a candidate. He's getting older by that time, but he could be a candidate. But Gavin Newsom, he did one thing in his career or in his lifetime that I have serious questions about. Did you know that Gavin Newsom at one time was married to Kimberly Guilfoyle? Yeah, that Kimberly Guilfoyle, the one that was Don Jr.'s girlfriend until he just got a new girlfriend and they're shipping her off to Greece to be an ambassador to shut her up. Yeah, that one. Gavin Newsom was married to her, but at the time she looked a lot different and she probably wasn't doing drugs with Don Jr. But still, you got to answer that question. POTB says Stewart is nothing like Trump, but we got to get out of Hollywood. Yeah, no, I agree. Jon Stewart would be an improvement over Donald Trump. There's no question about it. And I wouldn't be fearful if he was in there. I just think that somebody who understands the system would get more done and get it done quicker. Because once we're done with Donald Trump and the Republicans in this particular term, there's going to be a lot of digging out of a fucking hole. We're going to have to dig out of a hole. So we're going to have somebody who is proficient in running the machine. Obi Mom Kenobi says, Mike, I know a lot of us don't know how to fight anymore. Everything we tried has failed. What's your advice? Well, we don't have a lot of options here. We don't have a lot of options, but there are two options. The government, one is for the government and one is for us. The government, Congress has to do exactly what the Republicans did during the 4 years of Joe Biden. Obstruct, block, do everything, stop everything they want to do. The sad part of that is that means not much gets done for the people in this country for the next 2 years anyway. And that's troublesome in its own right. But that's better than some of the crazy dystopian bullshit that they want to fucking do. Secondly, I've said this before, and I think some people disagree with me. What caused the Republicans to win? It's very simple what they did. It wasn't about facts. It wasn't about truth or justice. What it was about is them talking louder than everybody, blaming Joe Biden for everything, blaming the Democrats for everything, flat out lying about shit like the economy. What we have to do is control the narrative, shut them down, shut them up. And if you listen to the podcast I did with Brian, the Trumplefuck, you heard me do that. In fact, he got to a point where he said, well, if you let me talk, and I said, no, I'm not going to let you talk. You spent the 4 years talking over us and talking us down and just yelling and screaming. We got a new day here. Now it's your turn. And maybe not all Democrats are in a position to do that, but every time I talk to a Trumplefuck or a Republican, I'm going to steal the narrative. I'm going to take your lunch. I'm going to eat your lunch, and then I'm going to kick in the nuts on the way out. That's what we do. We play the game kind of like they played. This whole thing about being above it all and stuff, you can go that way if you want, but look at the last election. Clearly, it didn't work. So I'm a firm believer that if you're doing something and it doesn't work, do something different. Maybe do something that you know is successful. And we know the Republicans were successful with it. So I look at my job over the next 4 years as kicking Trumplefuck's ass, embarrassing them, making fun of them, pointing out their failures. Some people say, well, that's immature. And I go, well, that's fine. I'm not above being immature, but the fact of the matter is it works. So if that's what it takes, that's what I will do. We're in a war here. We're not in some board game. We're in a war. There is Donald Trump and the Republicans have stepped over every norm and every rule. What I have trouble with is the Democrats want to play by the rules. Well, if Donald Trump has trampled the rules and norms, as far as I'm concerned, there's no more norms and rules. We got to play on the same playing field that the Trumplefucks did. Sometimes when you're dealing with a bully, you can't take the high road because they don't understand the high road. What you have to do is you have to get in the mud, slap the taste out of their mouth, and give them something they understand. We need to kick their asses. I'm sad to say that's the way it is, but that's what I believe. Kamala spent too much time with Liz Cheney. I think it hurt her. I think you're right about that. What she was trying to do, she figured she had the Democrats wrapped up, and she thought she'd try to get some of the Trumplefucks over on her side, the people that couldn't stomach Trump. So she thought she'd go out with Liz Cheney, and that might help her get some of the Republican votes. Fact is, that didn't work. Didn't fucking work. And it pissed off the far left, amongst other reasons they were pissed off, and it didn't work. Yeah, the Republicans are the Republicans, the Democrats are the Democrats, and the independents is where the fight is. We've got to focus on what the Democrats want. Again, they were trying to play nice. It didn't work. Learn a fucking lesson. We don't play nice next time around. It doesn't make any sense. Brian Addington just got here and thought you were MAGA until you refused a donation. Then I knew better. Yeah, Brian, a lot of people who don't know me think I'm a Trumplefuck by just looking at me. And how dare you generalize old white men? No, I spent the last 4 years talking shit about Donald Trump. So that's the last thing I am. But thanks for joining us. Benny Loco says, I like to thank the trolls for feeding the algorithm. Yes. You think you're doing something. And for the life of me, I don't know what trolls have to argue about. You won the fucking election. Why don't you go off and make America great again? You want to argue with me? Why argue with me? What can I do except call you out and talk shit about you? Helen Back says, sorry I'm late. Aliens have me working overtime probing uncooperative humans. I get it. I get it. No problem. We're here. Katrina Jones says, Miss N. Adams, I'm in California. I'm not confident he can win, but it remains to be seen. I don't think we can be confident any Democrat can win unless we see some changes in the Democratic Party. They're going to have to take this November 5th election, learn some lessons, and make some changes. Some people suggest they need to appeal more to the working man. They appeal more to the working people than the Republicans do, but apparently it's not enough. And I would have to agree. I've always said that they want us to believe that this is a fight between Democrats and Republicans. It's not. It's between us and them. And when I say us, I mean the middle class, the poorer class. The wealthy and the politicians are constantly taking from us and they give us nothing back. They will say, okay, we can't afford to give the middle class anything. We can't afford it, but we can give a $2 trillion tax cut to the wealthy. I've been in business most of my life. And here's the deal. If I'm paying money for something, I need something in return. And the middle class pays the vast majority of the taxes in this country. To expect something back, that's not asking too much. But apparently, a lot of politicians, Democrats and Republicans, think it is too much. We need to change that fucking attitude. Let's see here. Who is for universal health care in Dem? I think universal health care is an excellent idea. I'm 64, going to be 65. I'm going to be on Medicare in the next 6 months. If we can do it for the elderly folks, we can do it for everybody. And the fact of the matter is, no other country that's comparable to us or a little less than us has the kind of system we have. And I think this shooting of the CEO in New York is opening the eyes of some people. We all of a sudden found out that United Health is denying 32% of all claims. That's absolutely fucking crazy. That's absolutely ridiculous. And then I heard from somebody who works from United Health, and they told me it's even worse than that, because here's the deal. 32% of every claim they deny. But there's another category, and it's called rejected claims. And that's about 10%, making it 42%. And rejected claims are the rejections for the wrong name, the wrong number, a typo, whatever. So we're looking at 42% of all claims made to United Health, they turn down. We're all at a point right now when we have to decide who our healthcare providers are going to be. Who in their right mind would pick United Health after knowing that 40%, 4 of every 10 claims out there, they're going to turn down? Why would you pick them? And I think this is kind of opened a Pandora's box. I think that people are seeing what's going on and they're getting angry about it. That's why they weren't empathetic for this CEO that gets shot in the street. Everybody who has health care has gone through some bullshit, has had claims denied, and felt like they were wronged in that situation. The CEOs are getting scared now because the working class has realized that they're fucking us. And it's not just United Health, it's a lot of them. Tony Brooks says we need a more progressive candidate like Bernie or AOC. Well, I'm sad to say Bernie's done. He may not even run for re-election. Bernie's the same age, I think, as Joe Biden. So in 2028, it's going to be too late for Bernie. AOC, maybe. And it'll be interesting to see if progressives can win, because you can get all the progressives, but can you get the moderates? That remains to be seen. Bernie is too damn old. Yeah, absolutely right, Benny. Are you the same boomer who's posts on ATS? The fuck is ATS? No, I don't post on ATS. There are a lot of people out there, rational boomers, that are imposters. I probably got a dozen or more on TikTok. Okay. I've tried to get them shut down, but TikTok doesn't care. They're out there trying to sell crypto and other scams, but I do have imposters. I've had some people ask me, are you on Telegram? I'm not on Telegram. Right now, I am on TikTok, YouTube, and Blue Sky. I was on Facebook and Instagram, but they suspended me or banned me. I don't know. But it was a weird situation because everything that's on Facebook is the same shit that's on TikTok and YouTube. So why they banned me, I don't know. But after hearing Mark Zuckerberg gave Donald Trump $1 million for his inauguration, fuck Mark Zuckerberg, fuck Facebook and Instagram. If they said, okay, you can come back and we'll give you a bunch of money, I wouldn't go back. because I'm not doing this for money or fame. I don't need their money. I don't need Facebook. You did what you did. You proved who you are by supporting an adjudicated sexual abuser or predator, a guy that has 34 felony charges, a guy that tried to overturn the election. You support him, so I cannot support you. Jared Aldean, yeah, single policy voters plague this country, often bad policies too. Yeah, you're absolutely right. We need some more thinking people. That's the one thing that disturbed me about this election and the previous election. I was taken aback by just how many dumb people are in this country that don't understand policy, that don't understand what's truly going on. It's a sad state of affairs. Fuck, we've got an epidemic of stupid in this country. Diane says Trump won't last 4 years. He's declining mentally. His diet is horrible. Will be stuck with JD Vance. Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think he makes it 2 years because one of two things will happen. He'll keel over because he's unhealthy, or he'll do some crazy, stupid stuff, and the Republicans themselves will impeach him or give him the 25th Amendment. Now, people are worried about JD Vance, and granted, JD Vance isn't a good prospect for president. But I think the whole thing would be a little better if JD Vance was there as opposed to Donald Trump. And here's why. Donald Trump is a wild card. Nobody can control him. He just does and says whatever the fuck he says. JD Vance is a pussy ass bitch. He does what he's told. And the Republicans are going to be looking at the midterms and the 2028 election and try to settle things down to make them seem more reasonable. And he will have to pull things back. He won't be talking about deportation or tariffs because he's a little smarter than Donald Trump, and he'll be under the control of the more reasonable minded Republicans. They'll still do some fucked up shit, but it won't be like what Donald Trump was going to do. JD Vance has been MIA. Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? I mean, you literally haven't seen or heard from him. That's a little unusual for somebody who was just elected vice president of the United States. The fact that he's nowhere to be found, what the fuck is going on with that? What else? Trump and Musk give me the creeps. Yeah, I think they give a lot of people the creeps. And I got to tell you, if there's going to be a backlash on CEOs, if I was Elon Musk, I'd get some protection because nobody likes Elon Musk except some Trumplafucks. Eventually, Donald Trump will get tired of him too because that's just the way it goes with Donald Trump. Elon Musk will get some attention. Donald Trump won't like it, and then he'll be exiled the fuck out. Um, Federalist Society scares me watching those training videos for Project 2025. Yeah, they're a little eerie. They're a little troublesome to watch. But keep in mind, in order for them to pass many of those things, it's going to have to go through Congress. The margin that the House has, the Republicans have over the Democrats is thinner than it was the last 2 years. And what did they get accomplished the last 2 years? Republicans got nothing accomplished. The only thing that they did accomplish, they needed help from the Democrats. So I don't know that they're going to have an easy time getting some of these egregious things through the House because there will be some Republicans that say, fuck, if we do that, it's going to mess up the economy and I want to get reelected. And besides that, the Republican Party is so divided, they can't agree on fucking anything. Do you think Kamala should run again in 2028? And do you think she'll have a chance in the primary, especially now that South Carolina is first in the nation? Again, we have to see what happens. My gut thing is Kamala probably shouldn't run in 2028. I mean, she had everything going for her. She had the money, she had the momentum, and she still lost. I'm sad to say it has probably a lot to do with racism and sexism, and she's still going to be a Black woman then. This next election is going to be as important as the 2024 election, and we can't afford to lose. So what we may have to do to win is get a white man, and that's why people are talking about Gavin Newsom. Roman Crumb says, "What do you think will be the Democrats' standard bearer after Biden isn't president?" My guess is that it's Jeffries. Yeah, he's probably the best choice right now. He's the youngest. He's the most outspoken. He has a little power behind him. You still have Schumer in the Senate, but frankly, I think we should get rid of Schumer. I don't think he's proved to be a good leader in the Senate. The thing about it is I've said that based on what happened in 2024, we need to get rid of um, the old people, the old guard, the Nancy Pelosi's, the Schumers, even the Bernie, uh, the Bernie folks, because they live in a different time. Even Joe Biden, to a certain extent, he comes from a different era, back when there were norms and laws and a procedure and a decency to politics. Um, they don't know how to fight in this war. This is a different war. There are no more rules. There are no more norms. And if we want to fight against Trump-a-fucks, we got to be able to wade in there and do what we need to fucking do. And they just don't have the stomach for it. And they're old enough. They should go relax and live on their millions and do what they got to do. We need fighters now. We need warriors, and we don't need old people to lead us. And I feel comfortable in saying that because I'm an old person. I'm going to fight as much as I can from where I'm at. But when it comes to Washington, D.C. and Congress and the presidency, we need younger people to fight for us. And the fact of the matter is these people have some skin in the game. 20 years from now, I'm not going to be a factor. I might not even be fucking alive, but they will. These young people should have the opportunity to determine their destiny. Whatever they do henceforth, they're going to have to live with. I'm not going to have to live with it. I'm going to ride my time out and go off into the sunset. But my kids and my grandkids are going to have to deal with some things. So hopefully we can make enough noise between now and the time we become irrelevant, we old folks, and hopefully these young people will make the right choice. But we don't know that. Hopefully um, hopefully we've taught them properly, but I'm not so sure after the last election. Pro average, can you give me motivation for my finals? Well, I don't know. You got to remember, I went to college for 1 year. I majored in partying and drinking beer, and I was so proficient at it. At the end of that year, the college, the university, and I agreed that I could just test out because I've become so good at partying and drinking beer, and that I didn't need to come back. So I don't know that I'm the guy to give anybody motivation for finals. But here's the thing: if you're a young person, everything you should do, you should expect to win. It does no good to be negative or think, oh my God, I'm going to lose. Expect to win. Do the best you can. And if you fail, so the fuck what? Spin off and do it a different way. That's all I can really tell you. Brooklyn Joys, on another note, you need to know that Hobby Lobby isn't carrying Hanukkah stuff anymore for some bullshit reason. Please, everyone, don't shop there. I never have. My wife used to. She won't shop at Hobby Lobby. She won't go to Chick-fil-A. She won't go to Walmart. Hence, I don't either. But you're absolutely right. Anybody that supports Donald Trump now should be boycotted. That's the only power. That's the only weapon we have, the weapon of the purse. Take away their money, take away their power. Maybe they rethink things. Um, William Gregory, I hope Trump doesn't split the country any further. That's an interesting comment. And I made a comment recently, and maybe I'm just pie in the skying this, but here's the thing. When do countries come together? They come together under adversity, like 9/11 or World War II or something like that. There is going to be some adversity here. And this may be the one thing, sadly, that brings people together. Even the Republicans are going to have to rethink what they believe and what they're doing. So maybe that adversity will bring people together. I think Donald Trump is weak at this point. He was valuable to the Republicans to win the election, but now that he's won the election and he can't run again, he really doesn't have that much value to the Republican Party. So I think we will see people coming together. Sadly, I think it'll be because of the adversity we have to deal with. Um, I'm on Medicare, love adding the advantage. I pay 25 a month and get 115 back in OTC every quarter. Well, that's great. Thank you. I don't know what I'm going to choose when it comes to Medicare, but I'm looking forward to it. This is going to be catastrophic. Well, now see, Brooklyn Joyce, this is what I told the young man about the finals. When you go into something, you have to assume you're going to win. Out of everything bad that happens, something good results in the end. It's going to be bad. It's not going to be catastrophic. We will see our way through it. There may be some pain in the process, but there will be a brighter day. I know this because I grew up in the 1960s, and those were very turbulent, very troubled times, maybe even more so than what we have now. You had wars, you had assassinations, you had civil rights and riots and all this sort of stuff. A lot of people thought that was the end. But then the 70s came. I started enjoying beer and partying, and things got a lot easier. We'll get through this, but we'll go through some shit in the process. Analytical Iowan, Eric says insurance companies don't really add another to healthcare. They are supposed to keep you from going broke because of medical bills, not turn profit. You're absolutely right about that. But these motherfuckers turn some serious profit. Maybe there's something shady going on there. I think we're going to find that out. You know, people will say a guy shoots a CEO down the street. There's got to be a better way. My question is, what is the better way? Take them to court? Me take a multi-billion-dollar company to court? They'll drain me of all my money and I will still lose. See, that's the problem. And that's the concern that CEOs should have. You've put people in a place where they have no options. They could do it the decent, honest way, but you gamed it. So you can't win. We're forced to take whatever you say and enjoy it. Well, people don't want to do that because people are dying, elderly folks, babies are dying because you want to make an extra $1 billion. So it shouldn't surprise you that people go to extremes. And as it gets worse, as time goes on, as people feel more desperate, it's going to get ugly and it could get violent. I don't approve of that. I don't want that, but you have to understand human nature. If you've got nothing to lose, you can afford to be crazy. And people are on the verge of being crazy when they're dying and you're being ripped off. Ronald Hutch says this guy is real 100%. Well, I am who I am. And if you met me off of YouTube or TikTok, I'd be the same guy. So I'm trying to be as real as I can. I'm not young, I'm not handsome, I'm not talented, but I talk some shit. Jared says, how do you combat a group of people who won't do the bare minimum to fact check things and believe the first thing they are told by their repugnance? There's really nothing you can do to combat them because they don't listen. All you can do is diminish and disregard them. I mean, that's where they were before Donald Trump. Nobody paid attention to the dumb fucks. So we got to get to a point where they don't matter anymore. They're inconsequential. And that's why I don't typically like having Trump-fucks show up in my TikTok lives or my YouTube lives. They offer no value. You can't debate with them because they're stupid. So it's better just to rid yourself of them and move on. And hopefully they will realize that nobody gives a fuck about them. Cat Sound says United or someone who claimed to be in the know said there is no way of knowing what percentage of claims they deny. Well, I disagree. The facts are right there. They've always been there. My question is, why didn't we hear about it before now? Once again, the media ignoring and helping along health partners. They are advertisers too, so they aren't going to do anything to hurt them. Now they have no choice. But I will tell you this. Someone who claimed to be in the know said there's no way of knowing what percentage of claims they deny. I will tell you this. I've talked to some people from from United Health, and they know very well what the percentage is. It's common knowledge amongst people at United Health. So don't tell me there's no way to know. That's just a bullshit excuse, and we're not listening to it anymore. They're trying to save their ass. They're terrified, and they should be, and I hope they stay terrified. Ron Adams, over half voted for Trump, and he wants to take away your insurance. Well, it wasn't over half. It was like 48, 49%, but enough. And he does want to take away insurance. See, Donald Trump doesn't really care about insurance. What he cares about is his own popularity and making money and getting power. If he could get power and popular by making insurance the biggest thing we've ever seen, he would do that. Unfortunately, he's being manipulated by the evil motherfuckers, the Republicans like Mitch McConnell and so forth, and that's what they want him to do. Um, there could be some people that are going to lose their insurance if he's able to pull off what he wants to pull off. I'm just not so sure he'll be able to do it. Benny Loco says, I'm a boomer, 64 in 2 days. Well, happy birthday, Benny Loco. I'll be 65 in about 4 months. Cat Sound says, Trump tells his supporters he doesn't care about them. He only wants their vote. They responded as if he's Don Rickles doing stand-up. Yeah, that's the funny thing about Donald Trump. He thinks he's clever. He thinks he's funny. But there is a code there. He will say something as if it were a joke, but he really means it, especially if it plays with the audience or the people who are manipulating him. Donald Trump's not a funny man. He's not clever. He says whatever comes out of his mouth that he pulled out of his ass, and he decides whether it plays or it doesn't play. Obi-Mom Kenobi says we all need to dump Meta. Honestly, most social media suck, but Zuck and the first lady owner of X can piss off. I agree with you. I don't do anything on X. Well, I did, but not much. But I don't have any use for Twitter or X anymore. And Facebook, Facebook is getting old and antiquated. It's archaic. I liken Facebook as to putting up a blacksmith stand in the middle of New York City. Who the fuck cares? Helen Back says, Representative Jasmine Crockett is my choice. I want more people like her and Jared Moskowitz, the dude from Florida. I agree with you on Jasmine Crockett, but you may want to look into Jared Moskowitz. He did come off as a very intelligent, very assertive, and a sharp-tongued guy. But since Donald Trump's been president, he's been kind of backing off. I think he's trying to cover himself as we go into this presidential term. I'm not so sure about Jared Moskowitz anymore. He put on a good show leading up to the election, but after the election, he's kind of backed down a little bit, and I'm not feeling him anymore. Brooklyn says AOC, Jamie Raskin, Pete Buttigieg. I think out of those three, Jamie Raskin would be a viable presidential candidate. I think all of them could be great presidents. But based on what we see in 2024, do you think another woman of color's got a chance? Not with the racist out there. And Pete being gay and being all these transphobic and these homophobic people out there, I don't know. I could see one or both of them being a vice president and then slowly moving them up the chain. I think of those three, Jamie Raskin would probably be the best choice. He's a smart man. He knows the Constitution. He's not afraid to speak out. I would vote for Jamie Raskin. Benny Loco says, I'm also on Blue Sky. My pro-democracy channel is 21st Century Suffragettes here on YouTube. Come by and say hi. Yes, definitely check out Benny Loco's stuff. She knows what she's talking about. Eric says, if JD uses the 25th, there is no way he wins in 28. He might have a chance if it's an impeachment or Trump passes, though I still think he can't get elected without Trump. Well, I agree with you, Eric, on that, but I think he's got a bigger problem. if Donald Trump passes, he gets impeached or whatever, and JD is the president. If the economy is still going to shit, that's going to be a problem for JD. And JD will come off looking weak. That's just what he's, regardless of whether Donald Trump is exiled out or not, the economy and the state of the country is going to play a big role in who gets elected president in 2028. And we all know, based on the things that he says he's going to do, things are going to turn to shit. And the Republicans are going to get the blame. They have all the power, they get all the blame. Ron Adams says, just ran into you, Boomer. Just subscribe. Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Elon Musk is the shadow VP. Well, it sure seems like it, doesn't? But he's not going to switch Elon Musk to be vice president. He can't be vice president. Now, I don't know if there's a rule against somebody born in a foreign country to be vice president. I would presume there is, because you can't be a president if you were born in a foreign country. And we know that Elon Musk was born in apartheid South Africa. So Elon Musk could never be president. Thank God for that. Obi Mom Kenobi says Pete Buttigieg is awesome, and Big Gretch Whitmer, I hope she moves on in government after her term as governor is over. Yeah, I think Gretchen Whitmer is a very solid candidate. She'd be a good person to have on the federal level. Ron says Elon will wear out his welcome. I agree with you. Donald Trump doesn't keep close friends very long. Scorpio's cores. I'm actually in the middle of a New Year's resolution, preparing all family and friends. I will be shutting down my Facebook and X or Twitter from the 1st of January 25th. Proud to do it. I'm with you, man. I mean, you can scream about TikTok being owned by the Chinese, but we know that Facebook is supporting and donating to Donald Trump. We know they supported the Russian bots to give off misinformation. Mark Zuckerberg is a piece of shit. He's trying to hurt this country. So anybody that supports him should think twice about it. Cat Sound says, Mike, I understand your point on Vance, but given his willingness to seriously hurt already marginalized people, I'm not so sure he would enact more serious damage. Now, I agree with you there. My point isn't that he's a better guy. My point is he's less of a wild card and he's a weaker guy. He's controllable. He said Donald Trump was Hitler. Now he's kissing Donald Trump's ass. Donald Trump goes by the wayside. Right now, Donald Trump is little more than a liability to the Republican Party. They needed him to win the presidency, and after that, he's just a fucking madman. And he's going to ruin the Republican Party by destroying the economy and all those things. The Republicans are going to have to settle things down and make things relatively normal if they hope to have any chance in 2026 or 2028. So while he's a bad guy, JD Vance, he won't have the flexibility or the power to do the things, everything he wants. It's going to be dependent on how the public is going to accept it, because the Republicans are going to want to maintain some stability and try to get a chance to win in 2026. Dolores Sanchez, fuck Walmart, shop Target. I agree. Rita Ray says, perhaps the folks at the top who defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, are having a few private conversations with JD Vance. Yeah, you got to wonder what's going on. Why is he so quiet? I mean, you don't even see him. This motherfucker is going to be the vice president of the United States, and nobody's seen him. Nobody's talked to him. That's weird. And when Donald Trump is involved, anything could be fucking going on with that. Eric says, I don't know if South Carolina will be the first Democratic primary in 2028. Biden pushed for it because South Carolina helped him gain momentum in 2020. Yeah, you might be right about that. Obi Mom Kenobi says, is anyone in government doing anything to shore up the shreds of democracy we have left? That's a good question. And that's my question. With all that's going on, all that happened on November 5th, you would think there would be a flurry of activity with the Democratic Party. You would think there'd be a lot of talking, but we're hearing none of that. They just bowed their head, took their whipping, and they're pretty quiet right now. I don't know if that's a good sign or a bad sign, but I'm troubled by it. Rita Ray says, I'm old and unemployable. I have nothing but time. Me too. I'm unemployable because I refuse to work for somebody else. I'm tired of dumber people than I telling me what to do. Fuck them. Ron Adams says we need a 45-year-old charismatic white dude. Yeah, it really depends on who that is. I mean, it's very specific on who can be a president and who cannot. I thought Kamala Harris had all the tools and all the charisma to do that. Um, but just a 45-year-old white dude isn't going to cut it. He's going to have to be exceptional. He's going to have to be articulate. He's going to have to be charismatic. Schumer just got reelected to the Dem Senate leader. Amy Klobuchar or Elizabeth Warren should be in that position. I agree with you. Schumer has been an absolute failure. He will continue to be a failure. And Klobuchar or Elizabeth Warren would be much better. Cherise Austin, I love your wisdom. I totally agree. Well, thank you very much, Cherise. I don't know if it's much wisdom as I'm old and I've seen a lot of shit. Eric says we need to get rid of Chuck Grassley. Jesus Christ, he's so old. Let's appeal to God. Take this motherfucker home or down to hell or wherever you're going to go. How about that employee questionnaire from Bobby Brainworm? It was as if you were applying for a job at a nudist colony swinger club manager. Yeah. Yeah, Bobby Brainworm is one piece of work. D4L says, if we don't do something now, our country will be gone. I think that's a little strong. The question is, do what? They have the House, they have the Senate, they have the presidency. The only thing we can do is talk loud and keep pushing back and have Congress obstruct everything they do. We're kind of in a holding pattern until we can break out and get some power back in the in Congress, in the Capitol. But to suggest that all is lost and the sky is falling, I'll never say that because that's just not true. Cherise Austin says, I have a 20-year-old daughter and I believe in the way the younger ones can fight. The old guard needs to go on. Yeah, you're absolutely right. We need the young people to step up. And I had a young person on the Rational Boomer podcast. His name was Jay. And 20-year-old kid. He's looking to move to Canada to go to school, but he's a sharp kid. There's a lot of young people that are very smart, and they should be looking ahead to the future because they're going to have to live in whatever shit is created today, and they're going to have to fight over it. So we need them to step up in the next elections. The best president we could have is Pete B. That's probably true. Well, I don't know if it's true. He would be a good president. There's no question. But in this racist, homophobic country, can he get elected? See, that's the thing is we got to come up with somebody who can get elected for certain in the 2028 election. Indivisible is back in operations. Start standing up characters or chapters in your state. Indivisible. I'm not familiar with that. You may have to explain that to me. Obi Mom Kenobi says, I don't see much motivation in young people. My daughter's family live with me. I can't get the 32-year-old son-in-law to take out the trash. I don't have much hope there. We will see, though. Yeah, I try to think back to when I was 20, 22 years old. I didn't know shit. I thought I did, but I didn't know shit. But the last thing I was thinking about was politics. But I will tell you this, when you feel the pinch, when you get bit in the ass, that gives you some motivation to learn and step up and fight. And they may be getting that prod here sometime soon. Diane says, Michaels sells Hanukkah stuff. I was there last week for some things. I love Michaels. but not for the reason you're thinking. My wife shops at Michael's all the time. And here's the thing, Michael's is the best. If you have to go to the bathroom, Michael's is the best place for men because it's mostly women in there. The bathroom is always clean. You can go in there unbothered. It's a clean setting. I like Michael's for the bathroom. My wife likes Michael's for all the other stuff. Hobby Lobby CEO or owner is heavily involved with Project 2025. That wouldn't surprise me in the least. Uh, Lady, I can't, Funk T. Okay, I don't know. Says, hey, I'm a 1960 baby like you. Yep, that's a me too. Born 1960, April of 1960. Welcome to the Cool Kids Club. Rhonda Blankenship. Mike, I've been trying every way to get this message to you. Please watch this podcast by Jessica Dennison, Lights On podcast, former Midas Touch associate. Okay. Jessica Dennison. I will check it out, Rhonda. Cherise Austin grew up in the 60s and 70s too. Yeah, the 60s and 70s were a different time. They're a lot easier time for sure. What do you think about the NC Republican House taking away the voting right of the newly elected Democrats? Well, that's what you'd expect out of Republicans. You know, as I've said all along, these folks are in their last gasp. As much as it seems like they were buoyed a little bit with Donald Trump winning the election, there were a lot of Republican strongholds that were losing the statewide jobs. They're going to try to do some crazy shit. And you know what? If they get away with it, there's not much we can do. All we can do is keep pushing ahead and change things after they fuck it up. Mike does a pod. Okay. Eric. Yeah, I do a podcast every night. I do a podcast every night, hour and a half. I post it about 12:15 a.m. It runs throughout the day. I do, I spend a lot of time on some shows talking about emails because it's important to me to hear back from the listeners. A lot of times I have listeners as guests. We talk about a lot of stuff that's going on today, and hopefully we can clarify some of the things that are happening. I do talk about them in TikToks and the short form YouTube stuff, but this gives us a time to expand and get some other perspectives. You can find the Rational Boomer podcast very easily. It's right here on YouTube. Just search Rational Boomer and you'll find it. Or if you just want the audio version, you go to Spotify and check for Rational Boomer podcast. Do you see there being another Charlottesville in the next 4 years? I don't know. Well, I mean, I think racist attacks and that sort of thing, I think they're ongoing all the time. We don't always hear the news reports of them. I think racism is rampant in this country. I think it's at disturbing levels. So, yeah, you know, I guess we could get something like Charlottesville, but it'll probably be something different, but just as egregious. What happened with Jessica Dennison and Midas Touch Network? I don't know Jessica Dennison. I will tell you, I like and appreciate and have respect for Midas Touch. I don't watch them much. And here's why. I don't like to sit and watch news things for 2 hours. I need the information quickly. And once I have a story, I go dig it out. I need to get this done quickly. So I can't sit and wait 15 minutes for them to get to the point. And it does take them that. And I'm not talking shit about them. That's just their way of doing business. They're trying to build an audience and make money. And I'm fine with that. That's their prerogative. But it just takes too long. Now, that said, when I do catch the short takes, they know their shit. And I do trust them. It's just I don't like how they present it. I'd rather get the short takes, the quick information, so I can corroborate it myself. I get triggered when you say Biden is old school. That says we're on our own come January 20th. Well, Biden is old school. He's 82 years old. He came up in a time when politics was dramatically different than what we have now. So he is, in fact, old school. But as far as being on our own on January 20th, no, I'm not saying that. And you shouldn't believe that. There's always hope. There's always a fight. And we've got some strengths. We've got a slim majority in the House of Representatives. They're not very unified in the Republican parties. They can't agree on things for themselves. The Senate, they have a 3-seat lead, but we have the one tool that the Republicans used incessantly that we hated. Now we will love it. We have the filibuster. So, um, and let's be honest, cat sounds, we're all kind of on our own. That's kind of why we do the rational boomer thing. It isn't, it's not nothing more. It's not about me knowing everything and being able to fix everything. I can't do that as one person. This is kind of a rallying pole of getting people of a like mind together. And the more people we get together, the more power and the louder voice we have. And that's what we can do. You're not on your own because you have us and we have you. And that's what it's going to take. That's what we'll do. Dolores says, I'm my insurance worst nightmare. If I have to have a procedure, I tell them I don't like surprises with money. So tell me straight up. Dolores sounds like a little bit of an instigator, but I don't blame you. I think that's a wise thing to do. Rhonda Blankenship says Jessica Dennison was stopped by Midas Touch digging deeper into getting Trump out. She stood up to them, but decided she had to go her own way to get the message out to the public. Yeah. See, that's the thing with somebody like Midas Touch. Well, they're not controlled by a billionaire or a corporation. They do have to build the audience and they do have to make money. I'm not looking to build an audience or make money. Whatever happens, happens with me. But they are trying to build an audience. So they have to be careful about things. They can't always say what they want to say because it might affect the bottom line. That's where my problem is with somebody like Midas Touch. They're looking to be a big organization, and that's cool. That's their prerogative. But that means there's going to be some, what's the word I'm looking for? They're not going to say whatever they want to say. And that's the one thing I feel fortunate of because I'm not talking to anybody who's paying me money or I have to worry about family or bosses or anything. I say what the fuck I want to say. You can agree with it, you can disagree with it, but at least I'm saying what I want to say and I'm saying it in the way it needs to be said, at least in my mind. Um, I love Max Frost and Jazzy. Yeah, I like them both too. Max Frost is a young man, but he's quite brilliant and quite articulate. I'm looking forward to him to coming into his own soon. Mitchell Castillo says, you're right. He's not clever. There's no code in the mess. Kofefi was obviously covered mistype in context. You all give the guy way too much credit. Mitchell, I will agree with you. That's the one thing that troubles me and angers me the most. When Donald Trump says something and all the Democrats clutch their pearls and wring their hands and say, oh my God, the worst is coming, as if Donald Trump has the wherewithal to pull off everything he suggests. We know he's a pathological liar. We know he's bullshit and bluster. And we know he's so incompetent, he can't make most of the things happen that he says. So why do we give him that power? You have to understand what he's doing here. And you're falling into it if you get upset about it. What narcissists do, they like the chaos. They want to scare you. They want to scare you in hopes that you will give up. Don't let them scare you. Don't be upset. Don't be terrified. What bullies don't like is pushback. They don't like people that aren't afraid of them. And I've said this before. My code or my motto is this. It's the same as Bernie Mac, the great comedian, the late great comedian Bernie Mac. He was going to go out on stage and give one of his comedy stand-ups. The guy before him was just bombing and the crowd was just tearing him up. Bernie walked out knowing that the crowd was bad, and he looked at him and he said, I ain't scared of you motherfuckers. And that's the way I look at it with Republicans. They want you to be scared. They want you to be concerned. But I'm not scared of these dumb motherfuckers. I know who they are. They're not bright. And I don't like the fact that somebody dumber than I has control over me. That's not going to fucking happen. Um, Ron Adams, I got to run. I'm glad I found you, Boomer. Take care. Yeah, I'm going to wrap things up here pretty quick, too. I'm going on an hour and a half, which is longer than I expected I'd go. So I appreciate you all coming out and talking and making your points. Benny Loco says, I think they're doing silent investigations. A lot of people think that. And I would hope that's the case. I hope we're going to be surprised with something. But I refuse to jump on that train as yet until I see some evidence. See, was there some funny stuff going on in this election? Almost certainly, because Donald Trump and Musk was involved. Is there evidence that something happened? Maybe. And I want to wait to see that before I make any judgments. But more importantly than that, if there was funny stuff and if there was evidence, will the Democrats and the DOJ do fuck all about it? That's my biggest concern. We may find out later there was all these troubles and find out that the Democrats and the DOJ did nothing. I'm not going to get disappointed on this stuff until I see something hard. Cat Sound says Tim Walz isn't young, but he's ethical with a good record in politics, not rich, and is willing to get loud when necessary. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Tim Walz can take the lead role. He's well liked. He is normal. He's decent. He's been an excellent governor for the state of Minnesota, my home state. He won't be real old. He'll be 64 years old when 2028 comes around. And fuck, I'm 64 now. I don't know that I could be president of the United States, but I think Tim Walz could do it. Now, see, this is what Eric does. Eric is on the show frequently. He does TikToks at Analytical Iowan. I was talking about whether Musk could be VP, and I said I doubt that because you'd have to be born in this country to be president. And if something happened to Donald Trump, he would be president. And Eric wrote this: the 11th or 12th Amendment says you can't be VP if you're ineligible to be president. I was right. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. That makes sense. Rita Ray was saying, I was so looking forward to having Tim Walz as vice president. Well, and yeah, Kamala, they were my dream team. I agree. Mrs. Ann Adams says, I love my Gov Gretch. Yeah, I think she's a very talented, very smart woman. Donnie doesn't have any friends. No, he doesn't have any friends. He doesn't like anybody. He uses people, and people use him. What a miserable life he must have. When he dies, he'll die alone. Scorpio says, was you that informed me about the million Zuck is going to pay and also Bezos too? Yeah, I mentioned that. Bezos and Zuck are going to pay $1 million for Donald Trump's inauguration, which will probably go into Donald Trump's pocket, and they'll put the expenses on a fucking government credit card. Rita Ray says, I got stuck with Vance from the get-go. Yuck, congressman, then senator, and now, oh my. Helen Back says people need to be aware of who their local LEOs are. I had a shocking experience with a Trumpy sheriff. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of MAGA fucks in law enforcement. Shapiro's on saying Luigi isn't a hero. I said insurance companies should kill us in cold blood. Yeah, Shapiro's kind of backing down on some shit, and he's getting some trouble too. I think Shapiro's a very sharp guy, a good governor, and he could have been a vice presidential candidate. But these Democrats have to really look at what they're saying and how this is going to play out. Some of these people are going to get bit in the ass if they pick the wrong side. Helen Back says Senator Sheldon Whitehouse should be leading instead of Chuck. I couldn't agree more. That would be a good choice. Sheldon is probably one of the brightest, most articulate, and one of the toughest senators we have in the Senate. I couldn't agree with you more. If he was a younger guy, I'd say make that fucker president. Did you see he was in Time magazine? Yeah. Time magazine's man of the year. Now, it's important to understand that being man of the year doesn't mean you're a great person, because back in the 30s, Time made Adolf Hitler his man of the year. They're talking about who made the most impact. But this one bugs me because Donald Trump feeds off this kind of adulation, and we don't need to give him any more ammunition. I'm pissed off at Time, but my question is, who reads Time anymore? Who reads fucking magazines for that matter? Fuck, fuck Time. Uh, Cian Jones says, "Hi, Boomer, following you from Wales, UK. I think you're great." Well, I think you're great too, and thank you for following me all the way across the pond. Let's see here. I need to make a super gay nativity display just to bother my Trumpy neighbors. I think that sounds good. I think I like that. Gary Todd says, 1955 here. Do you think Trump can cut VA and Social Security? I don't. He needs Congress to do that. Anybody that would cut the VA or cut Medicare or cut Social Security is committing political suicide, because this isn't just about Democrats, it's about Republicans too. They talk like this every time they get power. They've never really been able to do it. I think on one occasion they did raise the retirement age, but they're going to talk this shit. It's a lot like overturning Roe v. Wade. They talked about that for decades because they could run on it, they could campaign on it. I don't really think they're going to be able to mess with Medicare or Social Security, because it would be devastating to a lot of people and it would ruin the Republican Party. I mean, even more so than it's already been ruined. Rhonda Blankenship says, "Oh, thank God you saw me. I can breathe again. God bless you, Mike, and God save the USA." Well, I appreciate that. Jessica Dennison is the only one talking about what matters right now. This election was wonky. How can they cut your Social Security? That's so disgusting. It is. It's abhorrent and it's ridiculous. And I just don't think they're going to be able to do it. Well, we've been at it for an hour and a half, and I want to thank you all for taking the time to listen and to participate, make comments, ask questions. Without you guys doing that, there's no point in me doing this. So I appreciate it. I want to remind you to check out the Rational Boomer podcast. Go to Spotify. The audio version is there. Go to YouTube for the video version. Just search Rational Boomer and you'll be able to find it. But I want to thank you all for joining me today. I just did this impromptu. I didn't know if anybody would show up. So I appreciate it very much. You have yourself a great weekend, and we'll be back again soon. All right. Now we're on the podcast. The live is over. I'm not going to milk this anymore. I think we talked about a lot of stuff, and we cool. So I want to thank you for taking the time to listen. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.